everyone. Welcome back to the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. I'm GoLocal News editor Kate Nagel. Thanks for joining us this Friday afternoon. We have a lot for you. Molly O'Brien was just up, but now I would like to welcome in the Governor of Rhode Island, Gina Raimondo.
Hello, Kate.
Governor, thanks for coming back. I appreciate it.
Yeah, happy to be back. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. It's off to a fast start. And
it is, I know.
Seems like just yesterday you had your State of the State.
It almost was yesterday. It was only a week ago, but yeah.
It was only a week ago. It was very well received as perhaps one of your best speeches since being governor. And one of the highlights of the speech was the $1 billion for the schools. Talk to us how this became such a focal point of your agenda this year.
Well, because I've been spending a lot more time in schools, and no matter what town you're in, like Barrington, North Kingstown, East Greenwich, or Providence, Pawtucket, East Providence, you go into these schools and they're just not in the shape that they should be in. You know, East Providence High School is a great example. They have a beautiful swimming pool. It's been empty for years because it's in such disrepair. So I just got sick of walking into schools and seeing a bucket catching the water from a leaky ceiling and said enough is enough. The reason it's like that is because we've been ignoring the problem for too long. And so the treasurer and I put a commission together some months ago and came up with a plan to begin to address the problem. I will say, this $1 billion, it's a once-in-a-generation investment. Even that isn't enough.
We know, we've seen the report, it's upwards of $3 billion. So if we're talking about this $1 billion for 5 years, and we know it's a $250 million bond to perhaps be put on the ballot this year, would it take then 15 years to be able to get what we need to do here in the state?
So the $1 billion is, according to the report, enough to get us to a place where we have schools that are safe, warm, and dry. It's not enough to get us to a place where every school is a place where every parent would be proud to send their kids.
Okay.
So we're going to start now, $1 billion, but we're going to have to continue.
Yes.
You know, Massachusetts has done, I think, 7 bonds in the past 10 years. We've done 0. So this isn't, you know, again, we're in this mess because we haven't invested. And we've been, by the way, spending millions of dollars on Band-Aids. So let's start now, start big, be bold. But it's going to have to take continuous investment, as you say, to over the next 10 or 15 years
to that point,
to get to the place where every school is one that you'd want to send your kids to. You know, I'd want to send my kids to.
And talk with us, how did you come to sports betting? This is something that looking to fill, again, this projected $200 million deficit. How did you come to this?
Because it looks like the Supreme Court is going to legalize it. It had been legal, 4 states did it, and then a law was passed which made it illegal. It's widely expected that in May or June of this year, the United States Supreme Court is going to make it legal again. Connecticut's already passed a law saying they're going to get into it. Massachusetts has, New Jersey has. I don't want to be left out. You know, by the way, it's happening. You know, I can't imagine how much betting happened on last week's Patriots game. So it's happening. So let's legalize it, put it at Twin River, and make some money on it.
So you're betting on the Supreme Court decision?
Well, yeah. Yes, it's a bet.
It's a bet. And so we asked the Department of Revenue, they're expecting about $815 million to be bet in the sports betting book. But the state's getting $23 million. Can you speak to how that number came?
Yeah. So we did a couple things. We looked at Delaware. Delaware's been doing this, a state of about our size. We looked at, you know, how much betting happens there. We studied their model. And then we assumed it would happen just at Twin River, because if you did online betting, it would require a ballot initiative.
Okay.
Whereas if you do it just at Twin River, it wouldn't.
Yep.
And then we assumed that the profit split between the state and Twin River would be the same as it is for the slot machines.
Okay.
And when you do all of that, you come to this estimate of $23 million.
Okay, because we asked that question, wanted to get that answer.
It turns out that October is the biggest betting month of the year.
That's what we've heard, yes.
So we want to get going right away so that if the Supreme Court legalizes it, we're ready to go right away, and we're online by October.
What do you think of the news today that the House and Senate has announced that there is a study commission for the line item veto? Do we expect to have any results? The Speaker will be in this afternoon, and I will ask him about this. It is something that you've been looking for, advocates have been pushing for. Are you surprised? I mean, how important is this to you?
It's very important, but it's not that it's important to me, it's important to Rhode Island. I think that 44 other states already have it. Massachusetts has had it for a long time. I don't know what there is to study. This is not an issue that needs study. It needs action. By the way, I hear it from people. I hear it from the business community. It's amazing. You hear it from everyday Rhode Islanders saying, how come we don't have it? Why, they feel that it makes us look behind the times, or, people want one more check on taxpayer protections, taxpayer money. So what I'm saying is just listen to the people and let them decide. Put it on the ballot. If Rhode Islanders don't want it, fine, we won't do it. But it's their government, it's their state, let them have a say.
We'll ask the speaker when he's in here in studio more about that. But speaking of things that could potentially go to the ballot, let's talk about where things are at with the PawSox. We have seen that the House Speaker has said he is not supportive of the Senate version. Now, of course, GoLocal teamed up with one of the top Democratic pollsters. He's worked with folks in your administration about what Rhode Islanders thought of that deal. 2/3 of them were opposed to it. Where do things stand? Should this go to the voters from the Senate version? Should the House go back to the drawing board and find another way to approach this? I mean, what's your view on where the PawSox are now?
Yeah. So, first of all, the PawSox now are in Pawtucket, and I think they ought to stay there. I don't want them going to Worcester. They belong in Pawtucket. So that's point number one. Point number two is I think this will help Pawtucket. It's more than just Rhode Island pride. Pawtucket could use a shot in the arm. This will, I believe, create jobs in Pawtucket and help revitalize the city. I don't think this should go to the voters. In Rhode Island, we don't have that, form of government. This is about $1 million a year from the state, plus or minus. That's the kind of appropriation that the legislature should appropriate. So I don't think it's not constitutional. It doesn't require change. So I think it belongs in the Assembly. At this point, it's on the House to take action. I support the deal that came out of the Senate. I support the deal that went into the Senate. The House and the Speaker have said they don't like it. They need some changes. So tell us what those changes are.
Have you had conversations with the Speaker about
this?
Yes,
and he knows exactly where I stand. We've talked publicly. We've talked privately. By the way, I understand it's not popular. I understand his point. It's a difficult political decision. And, I understand that. But here's what I believe. I think it's a good deal for the taxpayers. Fundamentally, this is a good deal for the taxpayers. If the PawSox leave, we lose revenue. We lose income tax revenue, sales tax revenue. Secondly, I just think we'll regret it. It's hard politics today, but 10 years from now, if you're driving by that Apex site and it's empty and there's no PawSox and we have to take our kids to Worcester to watch a game, I think we'll regret it. So he has questions. That's fair. Fair enough. Have hearings, do your job, put a deal on the table that you think you can get behind, and then let's see if it's possible.
So why do you think there is that disconnect there between the public disapproval of it and state leaders saying it is a good deal?
I think that I'm not sure anyone's done a good enough job really explaining the facts to the people. When I talk to people one-on-one, they say, hey, Gov, why are you for that? And I say, well, right now we're on the hook for maintenance. It's going to cost the state $20+ million to repair McCoy. When I tell people that we get over $1 million a year in income tax, like if one of the Red Sox star pitchers comes down and is hurt and plays for the PawSox for a couple of weeks, he pays income. So people say, I didn't know that. And I think once you sit with people, they say, okay, I can live with that. Here's what I think the problem is. A couple years ago, the team did a really terrible job. They came forth with, I think, a terrible deal, which I did not support at that time. They essentially wanted us, the taxpayers, to give them $100 million to build a new glitzy stadium in Providence. And they didn't do a good job with it. And so that left a bad taste in Rhode Islanders' mouth. And I think people are still thinking about that deal. And it's hard to say this is apples and oranges to that.
Well, we'll see what happens. We've got the Speaker coming in. But speaking of tax credits and incentives with the state, some of the work that GoLocal has done recently, we did look into Lance Robbins and Hope Artiste Village. Commerce did put an oversight committee over that from a legal perspective to make sure that money given to developers, that there's a process of people have legal redress. Now GoLocal has uncovered some issues with Brady Sullivan, multiple properties in Rhode Island, throughout New England, lawsuits involving that. Now that's historic tax credits. But taking a step back, should Rhode Island really be looking into who it's doing business with?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't know the developer you referred to, Brady Sullivan. Yeah, absolutely. As you say, with the Hope Artiste, we did a lot of due diligence. You know, it took a long time between the initial expression of interest and when we finally did the deal. We looked into all of his prior business dealings. There were some concerns, but not enough to not move forward. But in an abundance of caution, we put some extra precautions around it. Like, at the end of the day, tenants deserve to know that they have a good landlord who's going to do a good job. So we do as much diligence as we know how to do to make sure that that doesn't happen.
And speaking of business opportunities here in the state, the latest news this week that Partners is moving forward with Care New England to look to acquire them. Now, we heard from Brown University President Christina Paxson this week. She is as out front as any Ivy League president has been about an issue, and vehement about what would happen if a Partners came down. And we actually, we had Commerce Secretary Pryor on yesterday talking about what would be the implications of shipping Rhode Islanders up to Boston. Is there a concern in your administration for what this could potentially mean to the healthcare environment in Rhode Island?
Yes. I think in order for me to support any plan, and it certainly looks like Care New England is going to need a merger one way or another, I would have to be comfortable that the jobs stay local and the care stays local, and healthcare costs don't go up. Like right now, Rhode Island does a pretty good job controlling healthcare costs. It's not as good as it should be, but relatively, we keep our costs under control. I can't get behind something where I think that will go up. Also, nobody wants to drive to Boston if you don't have to. Let's be honest.
Yes.
I'm not. You don't want to drive to Boston to go see your dermatologist or your, doctor. And so I'm pleased that Partners is interested in us. They're a brand name, top-notch operation. So I'm not saying yes, I'm not saying no. It could work out. But we're going to look at it through the lens of care local, jobs local, and keeping costs where they need to be.
Has there been an instance, though? I mean, we're in the shadow of the Superman building here, of a big entity coming in, Bank of America and Fleet, or a Gatehouse and a Journal, to any of these big monoliths absorbing the economy. I mean,
it's a risk. It's absolutely a risk. It's absolutely a risk. So they just announced it yesterday. There is a long regulatory process on this one, and we'll ask all the tough questions, and we'll see where we go.
And have you had conversations with President Paxson on this?
I have.
Yes.
I have. And look, I share her concerns. She wants to keep care local. She wants to keep talent local. We have a crane just down the road with the Wexford facility. That's coming online. That's life sciences jobs. We don't want to do anything that would dampen that. So it's complicated.
That's right. With my next question for you, again, their investment with Wexford, if all of a sudden Harvard's coming in and putting a flag in the ground, they're going to have serious concerns.
That would be fine with me. That would be fine with me. The more the merrier, but she probably might not like that.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit as well. A couple more questions for you while we have you here in the studio. Your administration, one of the things that GoLocal has brought up is your chief of staff's continued use of his consulting firm, although he's taken a step back from it. But having legislators, having political interests come before your administration, it's still his company. He hasn't left the company altogether. And Common Cause has said perhaps he should have gotten an ethics opinion. What's your stance on this?
Ultimately, that's his decision. I'm comfortable with it. He has nothing to do with the company. He has left day-to-day management. He's not getting paid by them. So, we're comfortable with it. And Common Cause did say they don't see anything wrong with it either. So it's hard to, he's worked here for a long time, so he does have relationships, but he has nothing to do with that company anymore, and I'm satisfied.
It's nothing to do with it. The bottom line does go to his business, though. Even though he hasn't left it all together, he's taken a hiatus.
But he's not getting paid. He has nothing to do with the management, so I'm comfortable with it.
Well, while we have you here, I just want to go back to the state of the state. We've seen you put forth a lot of small business initiatives this week, and you've kind of taken that step back as you approach another election season. So I know we've asked you this as you've been in the studio before, but What have been the things that you've been most proud of as governor to date?
All the jobs we've created. You know, taking over at a time when we have the highest unemployment rate in the country, I heard constantly from people saying, can you help us out? You know, can you start building again? Is it possible to have momentum? And now you look around, you see new businesses coming here, you see cranes in the sky, we've cut our unemployment rate in half. And so that's exciting. By the way, not everyone's feeling it. A lot of people are feeling our economic recovery, and that is great. A lot of people aren't. And so we have to stay at it until everybody has a good job, everybody's school is in good shape, and that's what we're going to do.
Any regrets today? Any things you would have done differently?
We don't have time for that. We don't have time for that. That's a whole other show, twice as long.
But you are entering election season. I'm sure we'll have you back here in studio moving forward. Anything you want to let viewers know before you take off?
Go Pats.
Go Pats.
It's
going to be a quiet weekend this weekend.
Yeah, we got to get ready for
next weekend. It'll be a busy weekend. Governor Raimondo, appreciate your taking the time to come into the studio.
Thank
we'll talk
Kate.
soon. Okay, thanks, Governor.
Weekend.
Okay, thanks everyone for watching. We are going to take a quick break here and be back in the studio.
Hey, Kate?
Yes.
He's in the men's room for a sec.
Okay. Am I just hanging out here?
Huh?
Hi everyone, welcome back to the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. I'm GoLocal News editor Kate Nagel. Thanks for tuning in for a very busy Friday afternoon here in downtown Providence. Just had Governor Gina Raimondo in to talk with a number of issues facing the state moving forward now since her State of the State address. I'd now like to welcome in the Speaker of the House. He's been here before, Speaker Mattiello.
Hi, Kate.
Thanks for coming in today. I appreciate it.
Oh, wonderful to be here. Thank you.
Well, you know the drill. You've been here. You talk right to the viewers, and there's
Okay.
plenty to talk right to them about. And of course, want to start off with the Paw Sox.
Of course you do.
Of course, I want
Thank
to
you.
start off with the Paw Sox. We just had Commerce Secretary Pryor in here yesterday,
Yes.
continuing to push what he said was a good deal for taxpayers in the Senate bill, even after we've seen and heard your comments saying that want to take a step back and that's not the best approach. Talk us through why are they still going with it? This is a good deal, and why are you opposed?
Well, I don't know. You have to ask them why they think it's a good deal. My primary concern is that the citizens of the state opposed the deal 2 out of 3. So that's of concern to me. We're asking the public to be the partner in a public-private partnership.
Mm-hmm.
So they've got to be willing partners, and my sense right now is that they're not willing partners. There are areas of the deal that can be made better. I mean, you're talking about the amount of contribution by the owners. There's no personal guarantees. There's a lot of areas in which the deal can be made stronger for the taxpayers, but I think it's for the taxpayers to determine. So what I've been saying is there's got to be an outreach. The Paw Sox have to reach out to the public in a way they haven't done,
Okay.
and see what the public's looking for.
And so, speaking of reaching out, they did decide to come right to your district.
They did. They did.
Do you think that they should have been focused more across the state? Was it just a political gamble that they took to say, we're going to go just to the speaker's constituents?
You know, for some reason, people think if you change the mind of the speaker's district, you know, the bill passes. They could change the minds of the folks only in my district, and if we have a state that opposes it, it's going to make very little difference to me. I believe my district is very reflective of the state. It's a great suburban district. We have very intelligent constituents, and they're reflective of the feelings and the mood across the entire state of Rhode Island. So I think that's a mistake to concentrate on just my district. I think they should have dialogue with the citizens of every district across the state of Rhode Island, and learn from the citizens, learn what the citizens want, because the citizens all love the Paw Sox, but they don't like this deal. So communication can address that, and I don't think there's been enough communication. I think they can learn from the citizens, and then we can fashion something that the citizens in fact like.
So is that the next steps then? With you're saying that you're not supportive of the Senate deal, is it really for the Paw Sox to sell? Is that the next step that you have to see?
Well, yes, but not exactly, because you can't sell what the public doesn't want. So you have to listen. It's got to be a dialogue. They've got to listen to the public, see what the public wants, what the public is comfortable with, and then work on explaining that to them. And if they have a proposal that the public likes, the public will buy into it and the public will support it, because the public likes the Paw Sox.
True, and we've been talking about the Paw Sox for years now, going back since 15 about this. We're focused so much on a new baseball stadium. We have so many other needs here in the state, and one of the ones I just talked with the governor about, again, this school needs.
Yes.
You know, do we have to kind of step back and see what our priorities are, that there's a lot of other competing interests, and we have a finite amount of money?
We do, and that's one of the problems. I spoke to a prominent professor, an economics professor, regarding this, and there's opportunity cost to money. And you know, we can borrow, but if you borrow in one area, you can't borrow in another area. So we have limited resources. We have a lot of needs. We have to prioritize. We're putting an awful lot of time into the Paw Sox, and I know there's a lot of interest there, but in my opinion, that's elective. School construction is mandatory.
Mm-hmm.
We have to provide a safe, warm, productive place for learning for our students. So we should be giving that more attention and probably less on the Paw Sox, and addressing the critical needs of our state first. And then we can do the elective items. But they're all important, but some are just a little more important.
That is true. Talk with the governor about her budget proposal. Were you aware that sports betting was going to be on the docket coming from that? You heard it nationally with the Supreme Court case.
I heard it nationally. I believe there's $23.5 million in the budget. I was not aware of that. I'm not sure how realistic that is. I do wish the governor put alternatives in there. If that doesn't materialize, I'm not convinced it's going to materialize, and if it doesn't materialize, there's no alternative, as I believe the law requires, and we're going to have a $23.5 million hole in the budget that we have to address, and we'll address it, but the process should work a little different, a little better than that.
And speaking of alternatives, it's more than 10% of the projected $200 million budget deficit. This isn't a small piece of the budget. This is a big piece of the budget.
$23.5 million is a good chunk of money
big,
for anybody.
It's a big chunk of change. So what is your relationship with the governor these days? Is there open dialogue between you and the governor?
Yes.
Moving forward now with the budget process?
Oh, absolutely. We get along fairly well, I think. I like the governor. I hope she likes me. We get along well. We have a good working relationship. Naturally, like any two human beings, we once in a while disagree. And I've always said I think that's good. You don't want everybody just agreeing for the sake of agreeing. You want different viewpoints. I've always been a believer that the more viewpoints at a discussion, the better your final product. So I think the governor and I have a good relationship and very productive discussions which serve the citizens very well.
And how are things with the Senate president?
The same. I've always liked the Senate president, and we've had a few dust-ups. There's no secret to that, but we just got together for a dinner, and we set a good tone, and we're going to work together and move forward just fine, I hope.
So let's turn to some news that came out today. The Senate and the House announced a study commission for the line item veto. Of course, we've heard from the line item veto advocates. What's there to study if 44 other states have it? Why a study commission?
Well, first of all, what works in one state may not necessarily work the same way in another state. 44 states have, I think, 44 different versions of line item veto, and they vary greatly. So first you have to consider if it's best under our system, and I have some doubts. And if it will work well in our system, then you have to figure out what version and how you implement it. So there's a lot to study. It's not that simple an issue. Let me just say, people I think support it because they think it's going to save money. You can just strike out money out of the budget. Governor Raimondo said she would not have struck any items out of the 3 budgets that she's overseen. So the one thing she pointed to is possibly 38 studios wouldn't have happened. But Governor Kucheri supported it and drove it through the EDC at the time. So he wouldn't have struck his own initiative out. So it's not the cost-saving initiative that the public thinks, and in fact, it could cause complications. So that's what we're going to look at.
Do you anticipate time frame wise that the commission could come back with something during this session?
Oh yes. We're trying to get our first organizational meeting off for next Wednesday, and if that occurs, I'll try to get them meeting every week or two so that we can get a report out.
And as study commissions go, we see this with marijuana. They're studying the issue, but will there be the potential to see some sort of proposal coming out of it that we could see something on the ballot in 2018 if the commission goes through the process? Should the voters have the chance to decide on what's basically discussed amongst the members?
Potentially. Let's see what the commission comes up with. Let's see what we learn, and we'll make a determination as to how we move forward. It's a learning opportunity from my perspective. We've got a lot of very bright people there. There's some historical perspective, and there's experience in government on the commission. So let's see what they come up with, what their thought process is. I'm always willing to learn and look forward to learning, so I look forward to their product.
So speaking of things that the state is looking to get more information about, as we learned this week, partners in Care New England are moving forward with the potential for partners to come in and acquire Care New England. Now, we've heard from Brown University President Christina Paxson that she's got concerns about jobs. Commerce Secretary Pryor came in and said he's got concern about jobs. The governor said she does. Talk to us about what you're looking at as this moves forward, because the healthcare industry in the state is big, and healthcare jobs are, for the most part, good-paying jobs. And we've seen what happens when big organizations come in before. Bank of America and Fleet Bank, they usually tend to siphon off jobs, not necessarily bring them. We're talking about the potential for now patients to potentially go up to Massachusetts. What's your thoughts as this moves forward that's in the best interest of Rhode Islanders?
Well, the legislature doesn't have any direct input or control over this. The administration certainly has a lot more influence over these decisions. I am concerned. I'm concerned about the potential for specialty treatment going up into Massachusetts, and that wouldn't be good for Rhode Island and jobs long term. So I think the administration has to take a real good, hard look at this and make the decision that's right for the state of Rhode Island. So President Paxson, I think she has some valid concerns for the state of Rhode Island, her university, and our healthcare system.
So I've got you here in studio now that we're underway with the 2018 session, talking about the POSOX, talking about the budget, talking about partners, but what's your agenda this session? What are you looking to achieve in your top items?
My most important consideration is always the budget. The governor proposed the budget. We'll take a look at it. We'll have hearings. We'll invite everybody to the hearings, and we'll listen to folks and make sure that our final product serves our public interest as well as it can, serves the economy, is productive to job growth, and just serves our state as well as it possibly can. So that's always where I put most of my attention. Mm-hmm. Everything else is also important, but the budget is my biggest concern, and you know what my biggest concern within the budget this year will be to make sure the car tax phase out stays in there, and that we give our taxpayers some real relief that they deserve.
Okay, anything else you want viewers to know while we have you here in studio?
No, thank you.
Well, I put you in the hot seat about the POSOX, everything going on here in the state, right after the governor. So I appreciate your taking the time to come in, Speaker. I'm sure we'll have you back here soon.
Thank you, Kate. It's nice to be here.
Okay, take care. We'll let you go.
Have a great day.
Okay, thanks. Speaker of the House, Nick Mattiello, back in studio to talk with us. Give us an update as to where things are at as the 2018 General Assembly session is underway. Definitely had to talk with him about where things are at with the POSOX. He again recently said that he is not supportive of the Senate version of legislation that was approved in that chamber. Got to chat with the governor about that as well, but looking forward to seeing what else is on the plate here in Rhode Island. We'll be right back here in the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. So.
Hey everyone, welcome back to GoLocal Live in the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. I'm Molly O'Brien. It has been a very busy day today, if you haven't noticed. Co-owner of Tilly's Cheesesteaks is here, Jonathan Beers. Welcome.
Hey y'all, how are you?
Good, thank you so much for joining us. So the Super Bowl the countdown is on, right? So the New England Patriots are playing the Philadelphia Eagles. When you think of Philadelphia, you might think of a couple things, but I first thought of cheesesteaks.
Correct.
So we're gonna do some very investigative research here on GoLocal Live and do some investigation into cheesesteaks. So we did an informal poll on Facebook, I did, and everyone said we had to check out Tilly's. So talk to me a little bit about you, Jonathan. You've been in the food world for a long time,
20
and you guys,
years.
20 years. Yeah, that's amazing.
This year. Yeah.
And congratulations, you recently celebrated the just about 1 year anniversary of Tilly's. So talk to us just a little bit about how you got into the cheesesteak
People do that all the time.
cheesesteak business, and what it's been like for the past year.
You know, we opened up in December 13th, 2016. You know, we really just wanted to bring something that we didn't see in Rhode Island at all. You know, unfortunately enough, I think one of the first things I had when I came to Rhode Island was a cheesesteak, and it was not that enjoyable. You know, and so, but you know, years later, we noticed that there was just kind of a hole for really good, you know, Philly-style cheesesteaks, and you know, my partner purchased a property down in West Kingston, down by URI. You know, college kids love cheesesteaks too, and you know, we've been there slinging amazing cheesesteaks ever since, and everybody's been super supportive.
What I think is so neat, you talked to me a little bit about how the community has been really supportive and the local community has been so supportive, but I think the other thing that's really cool too is that you've made a really big focus of the restaurant to use as much local ingredients as you can. Talk to me about what's in your food and what makes it so good.
You know, there's a lot of things that go into it. You know, I talk to my guys all the time about, you know, I stress on bread. We get bread delivered every day from the Bronx. We only use Rhode Island dairy, Rhode Island ice cream, you know, Rhode Island mushrooms. We try to use as many local purveyors as possible. Everything we have is, what we call responsibly sourced. Yeah, that's really just really important to us to take like make a thoughtful cheesesteak. Anybody can throw meat into some bread and throw some cheese on it, but we thought we wanted to do it a little more thoughtful.
So, talk to me about that, because like you said, you've been in the food industry for 20 years. When you say thoughtful and you say resourceful, I mean, that makes me want to come to you. And you were talking about, like people are saying, like, I don't want to spend $10 for a sandwich for a cheesesteak. But for me, that makes me want to come and buy a sandwich from you. Was that kind of your point? Is that the market you're going for?
Yeah, to each their own. I want people that really care about what they're putting into their body. This is, what I get to tell people all the time is it's not healthy, but it's clean. That's something that's just really important to me, coming from Portland, Oregon, farm to table in the early 2000s, working as a cook, as a professional cook, and I wanted to bring that to something that some people can eat every day.
Yeah.
Not many people can go out to fine dining every week, 3 times a week, and we really wanted to give something that was closer to home, that was casual. Yeah. You know what I mean? I like to go into work in jeans and t-shirt every day.
I don't blame you.
So, yeah, I mean, that was really important for us, and then having options for everybody, from meat eaters to vegans, vegetarians, all that kind of stuff, and that's really important to us.
I think that's cool too, because I opened up your menu and you do have options, gluten-free options. You do have vegan and vegetarian options, and you did. I know, right? I hear you. I know, because
my wife, Kristen Beers, who's our marketing and photographer, and she does an amazing job. But she and my 6-year-old daughter Violet they're gluten-free as well. Excuse me, and it was really important to me for them to have some things that they could eat, because it's very difficult for people to go out. But also, we've got tons of cheese and meat and, and fried pickles and things like that, One of the big things we're doing, because this is from the support of our customers, they continue to ask us every day if we have French fries. So we're actually, this weekend on Sunday, we're going to debut house-made shoestring French fries.
Yes. Oh, shoestrings.
We got a bunch of new secrets coming out this week, so.
Cool. Yeah. All right, so that's one of them. You released that. Can you give us any hints for any other ones?
Well, we've done it before, but we're going to start bringing back the weekly prime rib, and we do prime rib sandwiches, and then we're bringing fried chicken on Tuesdays.
Nice.
So fried chicken sandwiches, stuff like that. So the biggest thing we're pushing right now is our Super Bowl packages. Doing a collaboration with Allie's Donuts on that. That kind of build your own, and that way you can kind of either reheat it or pick it up when it's hot and stuff like that. And being able to have those cheesesteaks there was at a party. It's the Eagles versus Patriots. I mean, go sports team.
You're like, I don't really do sports.
No, it's not even that. I literally have. You won't even imagine how many Philly natives there are in Rhode Island, and how many of them they're my biggest fans and my biggest critics.
Yeah.
And they're in there, and they're and they tell me right away. They're like, "This is super close," and I'm glad it's here. So it's been great. So don't want to make anybody mad.
Don't want to make anybody mad, but I think that's so cool too. So the design is beautiful, and your wife helped you with it, and I think that's so neat.
Branding is big for us. We like to have people recognize who we are,
and she did such a great job, which I think is so cool. And so you have the Super Bowl kind of promotion going on, so you definitely want to check that out. But another thing I want to talk about is you said you have the Super Bowl thing going on with Allie's Donuts, which I think is so fun, so Rhode Island.
Yeah.
And you've collaborated with them before. Talk to me about some of the other collaborations that you've done.
Yeah, Allie's Donuts. They say what's a tailgate without a donut cake? There you go.
I'm
Matt.
sold.
There you go, Matt. And then Shades On Brewery. They moved into the old Proclamation spot, and they're doing some really, really amazing beers down there. We're going to start doing, actually, we're BYOB, so you bring in Shades On Beer. You get free order of French fries and Shades On Beer mustard that we're going to make. So that'll be really cool. I love mustard and mustard and fries, and then fries and milkshakes. Those are the best combinations for me. So I love comfort food, as you can tell.
As you can tell. So it's been a year, and you guys have been successful, and you say that's in part due to support of the local community and really just making good food. But as we look forward, what are the plans as you look ahead for the next year or so?
We really just want to put out, just keep putting out something that's really enjoyable, and people know where it comes from and what they're eating. We want to make really quality fast food. People can come in for lunch. We have amazing companies down there like Schneider Electric and Carousel, and they come in for lunch quite a bit. And but we also have URI, and so we want to kind of focus on that and make sure we're doing a really good job there. And hopefully, maybe we'll get into Providence soon. That would be really fun. It's kind of on my list, but things change, so we'll see.
The food industry changes,
yes.
but you can always have goals, and
yeah, for sure.
Expansion's never a bad thing.
yeah, we'll see if we can handle it.
Because if there was, people always talk about smell-o-vision. If you could smell this right now, I tell you, people in Providence would be flooding over here right now.
That's what I like to hear.
That's what I like to hear. Jonathan, it's been such a great time chatting with you. We are going to kind of try to contain this because I know there's a lot of people in this office right now that I think want to get their hands on some cheesesteaks. If you're interested, how can people contact you about the Super Bowl promotion?
You go to our website. It will be all online ordering as of tomorrow morning. It'll all be on there. You can pick it, pay for it, and specify your time and just pick it up on Sunday. You can even pick them up early. We'll be able to do them so you can reheat them yourself. We'll have detailed instructions. You can call us, or email us.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
That's awesome. And they are all over social media too, so check them out there.
Smoke signal,
Whatever. Smoke signal.
Whatever, just get a hold of us.
They're right by the Amtrak station too.
Yeah,
so
right down by URI.
Easy
URI's
to find.
been great for us. So.
We like that. Jonathan, it's been such a pleasure chatting with you today. Thank you so much for joining us. Everyone, we are going to switch the setup just a little bit, so hang tight with us here on Go Local Live. Kate Nagel is going to take back over. I told you it's been a busy day, but a fun one on this Friday, so please hang tight as we get ready for that on Go Local Live.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm news editor Kate Nagel. Welcome back to the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. We have had a busy show for you, and it's not stopping yet. We have Governor Raimondo in studio, followed by Speaker of the House Nicholas Mattiello. Just talked a little cheesesteaks, little Philly-New England rivalry, but Tilly's here is celebrating their one-year anniversary. We're going to tack back to news and politics here now. We have attorney Steve Del Sesto, the receiver in the St. Joseph's bankruptcy proceedings. I appreciate your coming in to give us an update on what's been going on.
How are you?
So where do things stand? You have a lot of people watching right now who are looking for an update as to where things are at.
Well, at this point, we are still in the investigative stage of the case, and unfortunately, that will probably continue for at least another 3 to 6 months. As many people have known who have been following this, we've run into some delays in terms of getting some documents. I'm happy to say it seems that we are on track now, although that has resulted in just the past, I'd say, 30 to 45 days with us receiving literally hundreds of thousands of documents. So now the task has been and continues to be reviewing all those documents. And it's that review that will result in our ability and Attorney Wistow and his office's ability to make a recommendation as to who the potential targets are for litigation, and the likelihood of any success and what that success might be in terms of recovery.
And why has it been so difficult getting these documents? I mean, we hear about the Catholic diocese that claims that they were not involved or had any responsibility, so why is it so difficult to get documents from both them and the Attorney General's office?
All I can go on in terms of the difficulty has been what's been filed with the court. There have been many arguments that have been made as to why there's been a delay and why it takes so long. I'm at least happy to say that the judge in the case, I think prudently, heard the arguments but wasn't fully accepting of all of those arguments, and set some very hard and I'm sure that everybody would think aggressive deadlines. And it's amazing what a court order will do in terms of getting a response. But there are a lot of documents that they have. Everybody has to take their positions, and I understand that. This is, although we are not in litigation yet, it is clear that that's the task of Max and his office, is to eventually get there, possibly, at least with some parties. And so the groups like the diocese and Prospect and the Attorney General's office in St. Joe's and all of them, they are apparently making sure that they don't take anything that they think would be a misstep.
Now, of course, as you're the receiver, you have retirees here who are looking to you to be able to help them with some action here as this bankruptcy is upon us. Are there ways to think outside the box in terms of looking at getting all these documents and moving forward, but I'm sure you're looking at every avenue possible to try to be able to save the pensions for these pensioners.
Yes, we are. And actually, this entire case seems to be outside the box. There has never been a case like this that I have found in the country. I've spoken to people in different states who are very, very interested in watching very carefully what happens here because it has never happened elsewhere. So because of that, I, as a receiver, Max and his team as counsel to me, there isn't a lot of precedent out there that we can turn to and say a court did this or a group did that under these same circumstances. We haven't been there. So we are looking everywhere that we possibly can, and we are entertaining discussions with everybody that we can that we believe could potentially result in recovery. And so that includes not only the parties we just mentioned that are I guess the typical players that have been involved with this pension over the years, but also federal agencies and things of that nature, just beginning the dialogue to see what can possibly happen.
So, as you mentioned, potential talking with national folks that, again, just very initial stages. But again, this is groundbreaking. I mean, there's really no precedent.
Unfortunately, it's groundbreaking.
So let's talk a little bit. I mean, is the timeline still for adjusting pension payments what you've been discussing with retirees all along, or is that still in flux?
As of right now, the court in, as you might recall, St. Joe's had asked the court to make an adjustment. I believe it was on October 11th. At a hearing around that time, I advised the court that I did not think that the amount of time that I had been in place, it would be prudent for me to do that. So we kicked it out. The judge allowed it to be kicked out until sometime we had said after the first of the year.
Yep.
And in that discussion, February was really discussed. So as of right now, it is anticipated that there will be a hearing. Actually, I should put it this way. There will be a hearing in February, at the end of February, sometime the week of the 26th, where I will be making a recommendation to the court. I can tell you that I'm still not certain what that recommendation will be, although I did tell the judge that it's my plan to get something to him within the first week of February, so I'm close. But my recommendation to the court hinges on a number of things. I have, with the court's authority, I've assembled a group of pension holders that form an advisory committee, and we have been meeting on a weekly basis to discuss. They represent what I would consider to be a pretty good cross-section of the entire 2,729. And so it's been a discussion, open discussion, candid, about different ideas and different things that people are concerned about, different things people think might be helpful in terms of them getting on board with either an adjustment or something. Obviously, I'm speaking to Max and his team and getting their input and advice based on everything that they're looking at and what they think potential recovery may be, which it factors into everything. Discussions with the federal organizations, and also, as is obvious, just the financial health of this pension, because we need to make sure, if we're trying to protect the pension, we can't run out of money or get to a point where we're going down the drain too quickly before we're able to get a benefit from anything that Max's office may pursue or anything else that may be out there. So all of those things, and it's an enormous task. I think about it all the time, every night. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and I write things on my nightstand and explore them in the morning. But the long and the short of it is there is a hearing. What I'm going to ask the judge to do at that time, I'm not sure. There is a possibility I'll be asking the judge for some adjustment, but there's as equal of a possibility that I may be asking the judge to put that off, and at this point I just don't know what I'm going to be doing.
Well, let's asked about how difficult it is to get documents. You've sort of been put behind the 8 ball a little bit, if you will, because of the reluctance from entities to be able to turn over their documents. Now you have a data dump. I mean, is that an argument from a legal perspective to say, we're not along the time frame we thought we were supposed to be? I can't be held to the same standard if they're not going to be held to the same standards.
And that's exactly the case, is that like I said, in early October, I had said, I'm not ready yet. I need more information. And we asked the court at that time to expand my power to include subpoena power. At the time, I was a temporary, and I wouldn't have, arguably may not have had that power, and the judge gave it to me. Well, we used it. We subpoenaed documents, and those subpoenas went out. I believe the first one went out, if it wasn't late October, it was certainly early November. And now we're here late January, and it's been a few weeks since we've been receiving the documents, but it took about 45 days to get that spigot substantially turned on. So that 45 days is a delay to me. In addition, it's much, much easier, as you can imagine, to review documents if they come in more on a rolling basis than if we get all these boxes in a compressed time frame.
We see that oftentimes in the media. You see it oftentimes.
That's right. I mean, it's
Is it just a tactic, if you will?
I'm not saying it's a tactic here, but it is typically employed as a tactic.
Yes.
But because we're getting them from all different parties, though, as well, it's not just reviewing a set from party A. It's, like I said, hundreds of thousands of bankers' boxes, not the small boxes, the big, large ones, that have all been delivered to Max's office, and they are taking up space in his office, and every page needs to be touched.
Yep.
We need to go through everything because you don't want to miss something. Everything's important.
So here we have, again, these 2,700 retirees. Their livelihoods are at stake here. This is as personal an issue as there comes. We see a reluctance from the AG's office. We see a reluctance from the diocese. Is there, a sense of conscience do you get? Are they so mired in the legal that they can't express concern for these retirees if everyone's trying to disavow responsibility?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I'm not sure I actually can answer it because it requires me to get into their mind. But I will say that as a lawyer, because here I'm not a lawyer, but I am a lawyer, that you do have a tendency, sometimes the lawyers do. I can't speak for the clients in this case, but to get kind of caught up in the legal practice. And what should I do is much different than what do I have to do. And the question and the frustration that I've experienced, that Max and his team have experienced, and that the judge has expressed from the bench, is that we don't really have time right now for the legal chess match. This is an important thing that's affecting a lot of people very substantially. The longer we wait, the more we become at risk. Yep. And we don't have the luxury of time. And so while I completely understand everybody needing to protect their legal rights, there are 2,729 people that need answers and need those quick, because it's not going to help if all the horses have run out after we are able to shut the gate.
Well, I know a bunch of those retirees are watching right now, looking for an update from you. Anything else you want to talk? I know you meet with the advisory board regularly, but anything else? Again, is it just the next step is this hearing at the end of February?
Actually, I guess I could give a few pieces. I'm having another town hall style meeting, as I'm sure you know. I've been doing that on a monthly basis. And that is both because I believe this process, especially in this context, needs to be completely transparent. And the pension holders deserve not only to know what's going on, but to be able to ask questions. Things come up every day. Ask those questions. So we're doing that next Monday.
Okay.
At Rhodes on the Patuxent. I have another advisory board meeting the Tuesday after that. And while the next hearing is technically scheduled for the end of February, it is likely there are a couple of things that are going on right now that I can't reveal at this point, but that I plan on filing within the next, I'd say, week to 10 days, that I would be seeking a hearing before the end of February. Not regarding so much the benefits and adjustments, anything like that, but other issues that need to be, I think, need to be addressed in this case.
Okay, well, I'm sure we'll get those from you, Steve, letting, again, the pensioners know the situation at hand here. I appreciate your taking the time to come in this very busy Friday afternoon. Steve Del Sesto, thanks so much. I'll let you go off, okay?
Thank you.
Take care. Steve Del Sesto, the attorney who is the receiver in the St. Joseph's bankruptcy proceedings, wanted him to come in here to provide an update. He's in constant contact with retirees, and there's a hearing scheduled for the end of February. But as he alluded to, having conversations outside the state of Rhode Island to see what could possibly be done in this instance here again, but that hearing at the end of February, as you heard from Steve, he might be doing some filings even before then, so I appreciate him taking the time to come in here into the studio. So we're mixing it up a little bit. We usually have on Thursdays GoLocal columnist Bob Whitcomb in studio, but we brought him in on Friday. I believe he's around the corner.
Hello, Kate. How are you?
Nice to see you back here again. It's been a little while.
I know, it seems like years.
You've been on the road. You were down in Florida.
Well, the most important thing, I was in inland South. I was in Trump country. The Florida, that was the end of the road. But most of the trip was in places like Asheville, North Carolina, Forks of Ivy, Virginia, Rural Retreat, Virginia, the Great Smoky Mountains, and we talked to fraternity boys in Athens, Georgia. We ate a lot of grease, salt, and sugar, the three major food groups. And I'm actually, after the show here, I'm going over to the ER with this trip. We ended up, it was very, very cold until this depressing town called Ocala, Florida, which is kind of north of Orlando. Very, very cold. Then kind of gradually warmed up. We went through ice and snow, and
you just had
it was
epic,
incredibly
epic
violent.
road trip.
Yeah, it was, and reading what's left of the local newspapers, and it's people should do that. It's flyover country.
Well,
it's good.
flyover country. Now we got you back here
Yeah.
in Providence. Speaking of travels,
Yeah.
we're going to go national, then we're going to go a little local.
Okay.
What do you think about Trump's trip to Davos so far and what he's been
Well,
saying?
I think he gave a good speech. I don't know who wrote it. It was a pretty good speech. It wasn't hyper nationalist. I think it'll be interesting to see how this plays politically, because he was always complaining about the Clintons going to Davos and being part of the globalized elite and all the swells with their mink coats riding up to the top of the mountains and the Alps and all this stuff. And there he is. I think the last president to go to Davos was Bill Clinton in 2000. So. How that's going to work with its base, I don't know. But I think as long as the economy is fairly strong, the global economy is fairly strong, I think he'll probably be okay. When the economy goes down, especially when the stock market goes down, which it will, I think it'll probably go down later this year, and the economy doesn't look as rosy, then he's in deep trouble because of all his other problems. It's like Mueller. Allegedly,
the specter of Mueller asking him
asking
some questions.
Yeah, that's right, which is supposed to happen soon, I think. And now people are saying that he tried to fire Mueller. Now, I don't know if that's enough for obstruction of justice, but it's not great PR.
Well, it always
Not
seems,
great
especially
PR.
for the Trump administration, that there's many things going on at
It's
once.
manic, yeah, because the president is manic.
He's in Davos. Mueller's
yeah,
breathing on his neck.
Mueller, a Republican, by the way, which nobody ever mentions, a Marine and a Republican, who you've seen Mueller's picture, not one to make you feel more secure. Would you want to be interrogated by Robert Mueller, who almost never smiles? His face looks like Mount Rushmore. Pretty scary stuff. That would be a great show to be in that.
I don't want to be before Mueller. No, I'm good, thanks. And there's nothing to hide.
He's just expressionless. Inevitably Trump says one lie after another. Well, Mueller's used to be lying.
Isn't that pretty much a prerequisite for the job to
yeah,
have that poker face?
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
I think you're right.
It's part of the
You need to have a
business
poker
model.
face.
It's the business model. That's right.
So
anyway, I think he did okay there, actually, from a sort of stylistic standpoint, except for being there at all. Which I don't think would be that popular in the places I've just been visiting, such as Forks of Ivy, Virginia, which is in coal country.
So speaking of business and speaking of things more local, very interesting week here in the healthcare industry. Partners in Care New England saying that they're moving forward with their definitive agreement.
They're very happy about this at Massachusetts General Hospital and Brigham and Women's.
And where they're not happy.
Customers.
They're not happy at Brown University.
That's right. They're very unhappy at Brown University. They want to do everything they can to stop this from happening, because whatever partner says, that a lot of the people in this in their Care New England subsidiary will be heading right for Boston, to one of the world's 2 or 3 greatest medical centers, which is exactly 38 miles away from where we're yakking now.
It is a little ways away, and we had Commerce Secretary Pryor expressing his concerns. We had the governor in here expressing her concerns. And the big question is...
Thank God for CVS is here. We're all going to get treated in drugstores anyway.
But what happens when a big entity comes into Rhode Island, Bank of America and Fleet, Gatehouse and the Journal? It doesn't usually work out that well for the entity taken over.
Whenever you're no longer a headquarters town, you're in deep trouble. Charitable contributions fall. The best paying employees tend not to be there. They're in the headquarters. You lose an awful lot. I saw this happen in the Providence Journal, which they were trying to kind of gild with gold when Belo came in. And Belo is a good company. They like journalism and all that, but you could tell within about 15 or 20 minutes what was going to happen. Most of the high-paying executives disappeared, went to some other place. Charitable contributions fell. You know,
Charitable contributions. Again,
That always
they're not on
happens,
the
yeah.
boards. They're not on the
Yeah.
Boys and Girls Club boards.
they're
They're
running
not
into
going
these
to the
people on
galas.
the street. Are you going to run into people on the street? And that's a central issue. If you're no longer, if you're 1,200 miles away, frankly, you don't care that much. All you care about is the stock price.
So what happens if a partners comes in and said, yes, we will make sure that high quality healthcare remains in Rhode Island, again, to sort of appease the political
Well, I don't think
structure.
they're against high quality health care. I mean, it's a
But
Harvard Medical School.
keeping it here in Rhode Island, though. Let's talk about, is everyone going to be on the train up to Mass?
I think serious stuff, yeah. I think you can see a lot of the serious
Is that
stuff.
good for
Heart
Rhode
stuff,
Islanders?
cancer.
I mean, and the good side, it's great health care.
Well,
the flip side, you've
we've
got
had
a
some
heart
good
condition
health
in
care
here.
here too. I mean, we've had good. I've had some health issues, some rather melodramatic, and I good surgeon here and all that stuff. But I think you're going to find that the patients kind of want to be up there. Many of them, especially the well-insured ones, because they are Harvard, Massachusetts General, which has to be, and the Brigham, which have to be two of the, say, 5 most famous hospitals in the world. And you can take a bus there if you want. I think you're going to see a lot of those people, those customers heading up Boston. I think the doctors and the big shot nurses and the medical researchers are going to continue to be based up there.
But are we going to see
yeah.
maybe even a Boston invasion, though? Are we going to see
No,
that
no,
Harvard
I think it's going to be kind of
become-
one way or the other.
There's not going to be a two-way street here.
No, it's not going to be a two-way street. No,
Well, it seems like
not gonna
Christina
happen.
Paxton has concerns that Harvard could be glomming over into
Right.
their territory.
Well, Harvard, you see, the partners could not expand anymore in Metro Boston for a while because of regulatory concerns, monopolistic price. They've got too much, what do they call it? Price purchase, price power. So the nearest place they could move to was Rhode Island, which is dense population. Providence metro area is 1.3 million. Again, they're mostly going after northern and central Rhode Island. You get to southwestern Rhode Island, they're looking toward Yale, New Haven.
Yep, there's another
So
conglomerate to
they
look for
wanted
over there.
a lot of, and they can pick and choose the best insured people. So you're going to find kind of a lot of the high-end, middle and upper income people. More of them are going to go to Boston. I think this will hurt the business of Rhode Island-based physicians to some extent, and nurses, nurse practitioners, and so on. I can't imagine anything else happening, given the economic realities of it.
So do you think
We'll
this
still have
is
hospitals.
this a fait accompli?
I think so, yeah, I think so. I don't know how you can stop on a regulatory basis,
Well, I
because
think-
they are doing it in Boston, so Massachusetts
Christina
won't-
Paxton's
yeah.
going to do her very well best to try to.
No, I think, and
to
I
put a-
understand, because it's
wrench in
going
this.
to suck a lot of the oxygen, or some of the oxygen out of the Brown Medical School, which is very small. The Harvard Medical School is very big, and I think it's going to be a real problem. There will still be hospitals here. There will still be Rhode Island Hospital, Women and Infants, Kent County, and so on. But I think you're going to, I think you're going to see a lot more beds closed here.
Well, we'll see what happens moving forward, and we'll see what Bob Whitcomb
Yeah.
has to write this weekend in his
Okay.
column. Don't forget to read it on Sundays. It's always a must-read. Give us one little tidbit that we
Okay.
can expect to see in the column this weekend.
Okay, Amazon Go. Amazon Go stores. Big Brother, your retailer.
Okay, Amazon
Okay.
Go. Be sure to read
They
it
know
on Sunday.
everything about you. Everything.
I've got to find the cartoon, and I will send it to you. It's the woman who's on the phone from the 1950s going, "Big Brother's listening," and then it's the one from today, and she's in the kitchen saying, "Hello, Big Brother. How many cups of sugar and a,
Right,
and a chocolate chip
right.
cookie?"
Pretty chilling. We're laughing. We'll be crying.
I'll let you go around the corner.
Yeah, happy
Bob Whitcomb,
weekend.
thanks for coming into the studio. Go Local columnist Bob Whitcomb joining us on a Friday. We appreciate his taking the time to come in. Be sure to read his column on Sunday. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back here, the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Navigate Credit Union Broadcast Center. I'm GoLocal News editor Kate Nagel. I've got General Treasurer Seth Magaziner here to finish up a very busy Friday, and it's been a very busy year for you.
It's been a busy year, but a good year.
A great year. You announced this week $1.1 billion.
Yeah, we made over $1 billion in the pension system in 2017, a 14.5% return. And it's important because we do this to deliver retirement security for the 60,000 teachers and nurses and social workers and first responders who keep our community running. So, good year.
Good year. And would you attribute, your back to basics strategy as being, we'll talk a little bit maybe about the role of the White House, but back to basics, how important was it?
Very important. So there were two big factors that led to our strong performance. The first was we had a strong stock market, and certainly the rising tide lifts all ships. But also the back to basics investment strategy that we launched definitely made a difference. Some of the asset classes that we moved money out of were not the strongest performers. The places that we put money into did perform very well. So the strategy did make a difference in addition to the overall market environment.
So do you have to give a little credit to the Trump administration for this booming stock market? Oh, it's digging in its heels.
I am grateful to be on the tail end of the Obama recovery. I think the Obama recovery has been good for the pension fund and will continue to be.
Okay, so we've been seeing a booming stock market, but you've captured a lot of this run-up on Wall Street. But what happens in the coming months? I mean, how do we protect ourselves then here in Rhode Island if and when the stock market's not booming?
No, that's a very good question because obviously every year is not going to be a strong year for the market. One of the things that we are doing as part of Back to Basics is we launched what is called the Crisis Protection Strategy within the pension system, and that is designed to help us in the bad years. There are certain types of investments that perform well when the market is tanking. Long-term treasuries, trend-following strategies, and so we are allocating a portion of the pension system to those more defensive asset classes that should act as a counterweight when the market rolls over. So we hope that doesn't happen anytime soon, but there will come a time when the market has a rough year, and we want to make sure we're prepared.
Mm-hmm. And let's talk a little bit, had the governor in here earlier about her $1 billion for schools. Now we know some of that is budgeted money, but this $250 million general obligation bond that she'd like to see on the ballot in November. Yeah. Can we, we know that the need is $3 billion, not just one. Is there a way to leverage even more dollars moving forward to address the overwhelming school infrastructure needs?
Absolutely. So we have to get these schools fixed. It is really atrocious the way that we have let our school buildings become so rundown, in some cases unsafe. And I worked very hard through the fall as one of the co-chairs of the school building task force that developed this plan. And to answer your question, yes, we do have a way to make a really significant investment in repairing these schools. So what the plan calls for is a mix of funding sources. Part of it would be the state bonding, the first $250 million that we will ask the voters to approve in November if it gets through the General Assembly. But we're also asking the state to continue to spend $80 million a year out of the state budget. But then we're also asking the cities and towns to come up with some matching dollars, because the cities and towns who run these schools ought to have some skin in the game too. So the problem is so big that no one funding source is going to be enough to fix all of it. Mm-hmm. But by piecing it together from a few different places, I think we can make a really significant difference in the quality of these schools. And not only make them safe, which is like the bare minimum, but also equip them with the kind of technology and facilities that you need to teach kids what they need to succeed, the lessons of the 21st century.
Okay, I just want to ask you, too, about sports betting. Do you have any concerns at the Supreme Court? And again, the budgetary issue is not your side of things. But what's your thoughts on the revenue from sports betting? And again, we need to see what happens from the Supremes.
Yeah, exactly. So there's obviously some uncertainty. We're waiting to see what the Supreme Court does. It does seem that there are other states in addition to us that are anticipating that this is likely to happen. But obviously we'll wait and see and keep our fingers crossed.
Let's talk as well about the Trump administration here. I do have a question. Ramification for the Paw Sox bonds as the deal is put forth now that they're taxable under the Trump administration.
So I believe that part of the proposed tax reform did not make it through the final version. So when tax reform was being debated
that
in
was
Congress,
on the table.
Right, that was on the table, that bonds for sports stadiums would become taxable. That did not make it into the final version, and so
Were you keeping a close eye on this?
Of course, yeah. So if the stadium plan moves forward, which I personally hope it does, that would not be an issue.
So I'm sure you've been following the issue. We had the speaker in here this afternoon. Obviously, you support the proposal as put forth by the Senate. We're going to see what happens moving forward. Again, we've heard from the speaker, wants to hear more from the PawSox, going to hear what the voters want as well. But we've also heard from him, it looks like going to the voters might not be on the table. But, could there be another vetting process for another proposal at this juncture?
Yeah, I think that now that the bill has cleared the Senate, the House, it sounds like, is going to take a hard look at it and see if they can find ways to make improvements and make it even more favorable to the taxpayer. I would argue that the plan as it exists now is one of the most taxpayer-friendly stadium proposals for AAA baseball that has happened anywhere in the country for the last 20 years. But if there is a way to make it better, then of course we should do that. So if the House is able to find a way to make it even more favorable to the taxpayers, that would be great. So I imagine that they'll go through their process, and we'll see where we end up.
We'll see where we end up. But why did you in this week again to talk about the 2017 performance? But you've got plenty on your plate of other things. What would you like to tell viewers as you're here in studio that you've got ahead of you moving forward?
Well, so we've already talked about the good pension performance. We've talked about the school's proposal, which I've been very involved in helping to craft. The other thing that we've been working on a lot in our office lately is helping small businesses especially with access to capital so that they can grow their businesses and hire more people. The way we've been doing that is by moving millions of dollars of the state's cash back to local banks and credit unions, including the one on the wall behind us. And we've been tying it to small business lending. So if a local bank makes a loan to a small business for $50,000 so that they can buy a new facility or hire some new people, we'll put $50,000 of the state's cash in that bank. It's like an incentive to reward local banks and credit unions for lending to Rhode Island small businesses. Since we launched that almost a year ago to the day, we have moved almost $20 million back home to Rhode Island banks and credit unions, and we have matched and helped more than 200 small businesses get loans. So that's just an example of the way that we've been using the Treasurer's Office to help promote the local economy, and we're going to continue to try to build that out in the coming year.
I was going to say, is there potential for expansion?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we have already moved $20 million. We're anticipating moving at least another $10 million in the coming months, and then we're going to look at ways to grow it from there.
And so talk about tax reform. We did just touch upon it. Again, it's very new. We've been hearing, tidbits moving forward so far. Do you have some anticipation that the state could see increased revenues under this now?
It's possible. Under this tax reform, there are winners and losers. There are some people who are going to come out ahead and some people who are going to come out behind. I think on net, it's been a negative for Rhode Island, particularly the limitation of the state and local tax deduction, which is something that has been important to Rhode Island taxpayers for decades. Even within Rhode Island, though, there will be winners and losers. I think it's too early to know what the effect on state revenue is going to be. When I've talked to the Department of Revenue about this, they've said that they think that the positives and negatives are going to kind of net out in terms of state revenue, but nobody really knows. So we'll see in the coming months, and again, hope for the best.
Okay, sports betting. If you're a betting man, what are you going to do? Are you going to bet on the Pats or take the Eagles and the points?
Oh, come on. Pats all the way. Absolutely.
Just had to put that on the
Greatest
spot
of all
here.
time.
Again, we got the little respite this weekend, and then next weekend we're going to have the big Super Bowl. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to come in, Treasurer. We'll talk soon about programs moving forward, but General Treasurer Seth Magaziner just wanted to talk about last year's performance, moving forward, how to protect the pension system if the stock market isn't booming as it is, and other things as well. So thank you for taking the time.
Thanks for having me. Great to be
We'll let
back.
you go around the corner. Okay,
All right,
one more
thank you,
time.
guys.
Okay,
All right.
thanks so much. Okay, it's been a busy day here in the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. Between Governor Gina Raimondo, Speaker of the House Nick Mattiello, Steve Del Sesto, lawyer and receiver in the St. Joseph's bankruptcy proceedings, Bob Wickham, and Molly O'Brien with all things lifestyle. We appreciate your tuning in. We've got lots for you in store for you this weekend on GoLocalProv.com. If you didn't see it already, on our Facebook page at the Public Safety Complex this afternoon with Commissioner Perry about the recent shootings in Providence. Be sure to check that out. Lots on GoLocalProv.com as well. We'll be back on Monday. Josh Fenton with Business Mondays, Molly O'Brien with Lifestyle. So wishing everyone a great bye weekend as we head into the Super Bowl, and we look forward to seeing you back here next week on GoLocal News.